My wife is visiting a client, so I tagged along. But in the middle of the night, I woke up with a horrible realization in my heart. I knew I had forgotten something. I hoped against hope that it wouldn't be true, but sure enough, inside my High School Musical paint bag, there is not a single tube of zinc or titanium white. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, I was drawing in my sketchbook and had an epiphany. Perhaps I'd be able to paint today after all. Hi, I'm Jay, and this is McKinney Falls State Park. Located in the heart of the state's capital, McKinney Falls was the fourth most visited state park in 2022. I'm not sure why it's only me and the birds today. Well, and this little turtle. Perhaps it's because it's the middle of the week. That's probably a really good reason. Perhaps it's because it looks like it's going to rain all day, and maybe that's scaring people off. But I'm not going to let it hinder me. I like the geology of most hill country state parks. It has this cool limestone, and it erodes really easily, leaving interesting features. And I'm after one of those features first thing on my hike. I've seen these red flowers at the visitor centers to other state parks, but only on this trail did I learn that they are called Turk's Cap. And it just so happens that I hiked a trail of that name on Goose Island. There's no education like travel. But this is the Rock Shelter Loop, home of the 2012 Tree of the Year, Old Baldy. In addition to this big, bald, beautiful cypress, you have the rock shelter itself. It's some of that limestone undercut by the river and used as a shelter by indigenous people. Pretty cool. Allow me to make this small public service announcement. Please go out and enjoy your Texas state parks. But also remember to leave no trace. I thought I'd take a post-hike swim in the lower falls, but there were a bunch of beer cans that needed to be cleaned up first. So just remember to pack out your trash so that you can keep all parks beautiful for everyone who visits after you. I think this view of the lower falls would make a pretty cool painting. I am worried about the rain getting the paper wet, so I try to cover it as much as I can as I'm setting up. Now, the reason why I opened the video with not having white is because it completely changes the game of how I'm going to have to paint today. The only white I'll have available to me is the paper itself, but the paper is covered largely with map and text. So I've got to be strategic as I start drawing. I got to be careful as I lay things out, and I think I have a plan that's going to be workable, at least, for the painting today. As I'm laying things out, there are some cool opportunities presented by the map. The rock behind the falls can tie in nicely with the line for Onion Creek on the map. That's going to happen a couple times throughout the drawing. I just think it's cool to be able to seize on that opportunity, since in my mind I know that the map is going to have to show through certain areas of the painting. The clouds aren't going anywhere. I'll just have to press forward. So the first part of the plan really did hit me like a lightning bolt, struck my brain as I was working on my sketchbook over breakfast. I could use my white pen to white out portions of the map that I need to be my lightest value. Now that's going to be a pretty weak white, but it'll have to do. So part 2 will be adjust the amount of paint that I set out. I'm going to use very little today. And part 3 of the plan is to treat the oil paint as though it were watercolor. So I'm going to use mineral spirits and really thin it down. You can see the first marks that go on the paper are almost like a grease stain. That's going to be its own challenge. You can see the paper becomes gray when the mineral spirits touch it. So the value will shift as I'm painting and the mineral spirits evaporates. I'm going to accommodate for that. I'm also going to layer these thin washes of paint to get the colors and the values that I'm looking for. The thing that I have to remind myself is that it's going to be easy to go dark. Layer enough, use a dark enough color, fine. What's hard is to keep things light. If I make a mistake, there's no white to add into a mixture that I could paint opaquely over the top of it. So I'm moving slowly and methodically, building up my darker tones and trying to let the transparency speak for the lighter values. Although the paint is thin, almost like a puddle, the paper is very absorbent. So it's soaking up the paint right away, and as the brush empties out, I'm still able to do interesting dry brush textures as well as I try to simulate the surface of the water and the ripples reflecting the light. The rain is not making my life any easier, beating up on the surface of my parchment paper that I'm using as a palette. But it's not interfering so much that I have to run for cover, so at least the watercolor technique is still working out for now. I have decided, though, that I am going to add ultramarine to the palette. I'm going to need it to indicate the reflection of the sky and the water, as well as mixing up some cooler grays for the rocks. I usually counsel artists when they're using opaque media to start with their darkest dark to see how far from that white of the paper they can go. However, with a transparent media, I recommend you work from light down to dark. And so now I'm just getting into some of those super dark shadow values. I've been here for about an hour, and while it's lovely listening to the waterfall, it reminds me of visiting Kaufman House in Michigan for the first time. Can you imagine having that sound in your living room 24/7? I don't think I could do it. What I could do, however, apparently, was try to catch a butterfly. But no luck. And now, dear viewer, you have come to the choose your own adventure portion of the video. What I'm choosing to do from this point on is leave the full audio of the waterfall so you can experience what I did on that fine day. Now, you could choose to mute the volume. You could choose to skip ahead to the end of the painting. Really, it's all up to you. But I hope you enjoy the soothing sounds of nature. I have to say, I really enjoyed this approach to painting. It was laid back, slow and deliberate, but I do have to go pick Brandy up from her client visit and then head back home. I'll be heading out on another week-long tour of Texas state parks soon, so make sure you subscribe to see those videos coming soon. If you want to see photos of the completed paintings from the Texas State Park series, you may want to head over to my website and click on the landscape section of the gallery.